Ready, let's go. What is going on, all you awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast brought to you by Higher Passion Entertainment. I'm Nick with my co-host Jimmy, and making sure that you guys had a very Merry Christmas and got to celebrate with your family and got to just have some relaxing time, enjoy the holidays with everybody. With all that being said, Hawkeye just wrapped up.
I wanted to show something I got for Christmas from my sister. This is the motion picture anthology on Blu-ray.
That's awesome.
Yes. Christopher.
Is there any extended features or bonus features that it comes with?
20 hours of bonus features on here, plus
awesome.
A separate disc that has like a documentary about the history of Superman. So I'm pretty eager to check that out.
That's awesome, bro. That's awesome. Yeah. Definitely a must-have for all comic book fans for sure, especially that one. But we're going to get into Hawkeye today, the first season. So it's going to be heavy spoilers. If you guys haven't seen that, make sure to check it out. But all in all, we'll talk about the good. What did you like first off with the show? Everything about this show in its whole.
I like that it gave us a better understanding of the character of Hawkeye. I feel like I understand him a lot more. I understand what makes him so heroic. And something that Kevin Smith, the guru of geek, said something recently where he said he used to think of Hawkeye as kind of like a side or a throwaway kind of superhero character, which I'm sure a lot of people thought of him as. But he said it's that one moment towards the end of the series when Kate Bishop talks about why she was inspired by him. Because he was just a guy. He has no superpowers. He's not even like Iron Man or Batman. He doesn't have like money or like he's not like super wealthy or anything like that. He's just a guy with a stick and an arrow.
Well, highly trained shield agent is pretty much what it.
Yes, but he doesn't have superpowers and he's
well, I meant for just that's pretty much his. But if you want to describe him in a quick sentence, it was just a highly trained shield agent.
Yeah.
He's good with the bow and arrow.
But basically a regular guy just doing his best. And where she's talking about showed that you don't have to be able to fly. You don't have to have superpowers or shoot lasers out of your eyes in order to be a hero. A hero can be just like anybody. And I really like that. I really like Cliff Barton as a character. I like how they kind of played up his kind of, I don't know how to describe it. He doesn't like the spotlight too much.
Like his super seriousness and his willingness. Well, I think that really goes back to him being a shield agent too. That fact, like he's not really totally comfortable with the limelight. He kind of just does his job and then goes home.
And I think that's what makes his brand of heroism kind of genuine, because he's not there because he wants all the attention or glory. He does this because he believes that it is the right thing to do. And I really like the relationship between him and Kate Bishop on the show. It's not a perfect show, but it got better as it went along. And definitely. The last couple of episodes really were excellent. I really liked the last couple of episodes.
I think what really drew me to the show, and it's something that we've mentioned a lot, is just that fact that it felt like probably the most realistic show that the MCU has offered as far as the Disney Plus shows. Yeah. You had WandaVision, which delved a lot into the magic and her reality-altering powers.
Altering reality. A lot of the other ones are super high. I mean, super high fantasy concept.
Probably, I think, though, the closest we had to realistic was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but even that, because it's involving them having to take on the Flag Smashers, which is a group of people that had the super soldier serum. Obviously, they were pretty much, they were low-level metahumans, essentially, or like powered individuals, essentially, low-powered individuals. But so there was still that element, and then obviously Loki died more into that fantasy with the TVA and all of that. And even so much What If stuff was more fantasy, it was animation. So obviously there was a lot of elements like there. As far as I think that's what really gravitated my interest towards the show and what really piqued that curiosity, because I was saying to myself, okay, this is going to be the most grounded of these shows on Disney Plus, and we're going to just see it being placed in New York. It felt like one of those classic kind of superhero tales, but also because we were giving the limelight to Hawkeye, who is somebody who's been a background character played by phenomenally by a great actor who is Jeremy Renner. He's freaking awesome. Great actor. And I think I just was really piqued on what route were they really going to take the show and what were they going to do with it. And I think for me, that's what really worked.
Yeah. But overall, I really liked it a lot. I liked the twist that they go with towards the end. I'm a little bit mixed. I mean, we can get into spoilers. I'm a little bit mixed on one particular decision that Kate Bishop makes involving her mother. That I don't know. I really liked where it went, and I understand. So spoilers, at the end, it turns out that Kate's mom was working with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, who makes his excellent return to the role.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends
played beautifully by Vincent D'Onofrio, who
Vincent
reprises his role
D'Onofrio.
from the Defenders verse of the MCU. The show's on Disney Plus. I mean, I'm sorry, Marvel. The show's on Netflix. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. I was a little bit mixed on her decision to have her mom arrested. And I understand that her mom was not doing well, but I also feel that her mom inherited a situation that she had no control over. And had she not, I don't know, had she not took on her husband's debt, she very well could have been killed, and her daughter could have very well have been killed. So I feel like there is a little bit where I've just felt a little bit bad that they had to arrest her at the end of the show, because I don't view her as necessarily as a bad person. I view her as a person who was put in a very tough spot and made poor decisions, but a person who probably is making decisions that most of us would never have to make in the first place.
It's one of those situations where it's not all black and gray or black and white. It's having to dive into those shades of gray because of that. And especially even if she was to walk away completely, like go to the Kingpin and him releasing that debt and saying, okay, you guys are good, but now you're not living that life of luxury and having to grow up very different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Kingpin is ruthless, one of the scariest characters in Marvel. So I'd imagine if her husband owed a debt to Wilson Fisk, he's not going to just let that go. And I imagine, and he doesn't care. He'll kill anybody. He's a very ruthless. And as you can see, he still has that aspect about him where he's like, oh, we're family and everything. And then turning around and talking about killing people. Interesting stuff towards the end. But I really loved the return of Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm just upset. Is he dead? Is he alive?
Yeah, I mean, he can't be. I doubt they were going to bring Vincent D'Onofrio back for this one time to reprise his role. It seems like he's going to be around for the future, and especially with Daredevil coming back, and then him hopefully Spider-Man getting together and collaborating. I do feel he's going to be back for sure.
Yeah,
I know that's how it happens in the comics too, where Echo shoots him, but it's not on the panel you don't see. It's just like and it's just hinting that he was shot, but that you don't fully see it. And I think we knew that obviously Echo isn't going to die for sure because she's going to have her own spinoff too. So I really feel like for a character like the Kingpin, they wouldn't bring him back just to kill him off like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was questioning that. There's a part of me I'm like, it feels like him being shot off screen is there because we can't be because they want to bring him back. And I'm like, but what if it's there just because Disney just doesn't want to show that level of violence of somebody being shot in the face at point blank range? Because that's what it looks like she's about to do to him. She looks like she's about to shoot him directly in the face at point blank range. So either way, I hope Vincent D'Onofrio comes back. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is one of the best villains in Marvel. And I know it's like he's a Daredevil villain and he's a Spider-Man villain. We need to see him face off against Tom Holland in the next
point.
At some point, we need to see. Feels like it's incomplete. A Kingpin that doesn't face off against Peter Parker does not feel complete to me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I liked, and also one more thing I definitely liked is this Kate Bishop. I really feel like her character works. Haley Steinfeld is great, and as that deer in the headlights kind of person who gets thrust in this world and is just so overcome with so much kind of hysteria with meeting Hawkeye. You can definitely feel like those first interactions, she's just overwhelmed with joy. And those little instances where she realized because of the choices that she made that this is going to cause Clint to possibly miss Christmas with his family. And I think a lot of that gets reiterated, and just even though there's no dialogue, you can just tell her expression as Nathaniel calls him and she's having to write out what he's saying because his hearing aid was damaged, so he can't hear. And you can just see like those feelings of guilt on her face, like, damn, like because of my choice, he's not able to go back home. And I even think it's so much so that gets is what brought back to her too, is because of like the Nathaniel is not even mad about it. He's just like, oh, okay, daddy, we understand. There's no, she's kind of just like, damn, like because of my decision that I made. I think a lot of that was really great also.
Yeah, and he finally came to accept her as a partner, and he said that very sweet thing that he said to her about how some people that you meet and they just make you a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And she is that. She brought, I mean, he was already, obviously he is a good person, but I felt like she probably brought a different side out of him that if he had never met her, we would not have seen, and made him even a better person than he already was.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had a very kind of touching relationship between those two characters.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
One of the other things I loved was Yelena.
She was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like they gave a lot of good closure to the storyline of Natasha, of her sacrificing herself. Yelena's inability to accept it for a long time, even though she knows who her sister is, and she knows that her sister is a way different person than she was. It took her a long time to accept the fact that her sister chose to make the sacrifice. And I was glad that Yelena finally backed off of Cliff after towards the end. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing more of Florence Pugh, just because I think she's very scary in a very underhanded way. The moments where she's with Kate and she just keeps saying her name like full on Kate Bishop, and she's like, why do you keep saying my full name? And then she like lists off everything that she knows about her casual air. I think she's pretty scary without trying to be scary. She seems very intimidating and a threat, and she's a much different Black Widow than Natasha. She's going to bring something completely different to that character and to the MCU.
And I think just a lot of those interactions that they had each other over the macaroni with the sriracha, and it felt very much like not what she was expecting. Like she was expecting her to just come in there, like if she would, like you even seen her like right away, like okay, well if you're gonna kill me, yeah, you would have done it already. And just even though they're having like this comical interaction and you're learning more about Yelena and where she's at, and you already knew that
sinister underneath those comical reactions.
Oh yeah, and even right as she leaves, that's what she says. Like, by the way, Kate Bishop, don't get to my way again. You kind of.
Yeah, I like that. There's something very sinister underneath their interactions together. And she killed a role, and I did not expect her to come onto the show, but I guess it makes sense given the relationship between Cliff and Natasha that she would have to have some kind of role and bring some kind of closure to that storyline.
Definitely. I also really like Jack. I thought Timothy Dalton, I don't know too much about his work. He's a great actor. I don't know if it worked for me as well with them trying to set him up as a villain. I don't think that definitely worked in my opinion. I think we knew
really quick, Tony Dalton.
You're thinking, sorry, Timothy Dalton is the James Bond. Yeah, sorry, Tony Dalton
is James Bond.
He was great. Hopefully we'll see him more, especially because he's a swordsman. I do feel like this introduction was going to be a first-time thing for him, and they're going to bring him back in the future. He's awesome. I definitely felt like he was very genuine and a great performance, and just a great character around to have. I don't know. He didn't exactly feel like a villain to me. I felt like they were trying to go a separate way or have it this way, and then.
So do you feel like it was very deliberately misleading? Were you kind of caught onto it, or did you believe that he was?
I think it was this intention. They were intentionally trying to mislead you, but I felt like in the background you kind of seen how Kate's mom was acting and her whole Eleanor, I think her name is, and how I really from the start I knew that she, especially once Clint started talking about I'm afraid of the big guy, or the uncle, the boss. I already knew, okay, hand in hand, if they're wealthy, affluent people, then Kingpin, then she has to be working with Kingpin on some level.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think they did a really good job of misleading the audience, because if you think back, I mean, he didn't do anything particularly wrong, but if you look at it through Kate Bishop's point of view, you could kind of see why you would have suspected him so much. And especially when you think about the fencing fight that he had where she's playing it down, you realize he was actually just trying to be nice during that fencing fight and play it down.
I feel like this wasn't really something that was stated or said, but it was just more something I thought about because of her reaction when she first seen like her and Jack, like her first interactions with that. I actually felt a big thing about her thinking of him as guilty or thinking that he was involved was because that she was marrying like there's a little bit of jealousy because he was marrying her mom, and
Yeah.
that the whole thing about him trying to replace like her dad. I felt like there was a little bit of jealousy and animosity towards that.
Yeah.
I don't think that was so much stated, but in just some of her interactions
Oh
and
yeah.
some of the physical acting she did, I felt like there was like that little hint of that in there, which is why, oh yeah, Jack's guilty because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they hint at it, and I think they get a good job at hinting at it because it's never stated outright. But I think most of the time in those types of relationships, when that's a normal thing to happen, to have that kind of animosity when somebody's marrying, your parent, whether it's your mom or your dad, and you feel like they're kind of like replacing
Definitely,
other parent. So I could see the animosity there, but it's good that they never state it, that you could just tell by her performance that she felt that way, not because
definitely,
she really said anything in particular.
definitely. Some of the action was I felt like the action actually got better towards the end. Like that final action pieces that they had in the finale was really, really great. Like that tracking shot through the office of Yelena and Kate fighting, that was pretty great.
Oh yeah.
And in the beginning, like the first couple fights that they had, like especially in the first episode, there was so much cutting, and I felt like it just wasn't up to par with what it should have been.
Yeah.
But I still feel like they haven't really portrayed Kate as a competent fighter or someone who's had this long-standing history and practice in martial
I mean,
arts. Her style feels very improvised, in my opinion.
it is. I mean, we're still looking at her at the early stages, and I mean, let's be honest, she did get her ass handed to her by the Kingpin. The only way that she was able to beat him was through a mix of cleverness and accident, because she could not have predicted that he was going to take out the arrows and break them like that and they would fall.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's a moment of improvisation where she's like, okay, he broke all the arrows right there, press the button, blow them away. But yeah,
Exactly.
It feels like she barely survived that one, that she could have easily have been killed by him right there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure as her story goes on in the MCU, we're going to see her develop and become more competent. But this is still the early days of Kate,
Definitely.
obviously.
Yeah, I think my only thing, it was just like, I wish that they didn't even fully say it out loud, but it's just in her room with all the trophies. You see like martial arts trophies in there. So that's just, they were hinting that she had some kind of background in martial arts and probably 10 plus years or so. And I even think in the dialogue, doesn't Eleanor say that she got her black belt by like 10 or 15, whatever it is or something?
Yeah.
So
they did say that.
like my only thing is that they just didn't portray her as well as a martial artist, as a fighter, as I was expecting. Like her fighting style felt very chaotic and improvised and on the fly, and not somebody who was a well diverse fighting style is more what I was saying.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that.
But now let's get to some of the things that didn't work. What one thing didn't work for you? Well, there's going to be multiple things, but what's one thing off the top of your head you can think about?
The humor. This one, and this is a problem across all of the MCU, is
Definitely
the humor in the middle of action sequences. But this one had a couple of moments, especially in the real last episode, that had me really just like doing the face palm, like really that whole moment with the tracksuit mafia and Kate Bishop. Oh yeah, I took my girlfriend
to Maroon 5
instead, and that little thing, and I still had to kill you. I'm sorry, but that shit is jarring. It undercuts it. And that was one of the most, and it does this several times throughout the show. I felt like the humor in these action sequences usually don't work for me. I felt like they kicked it up and it was more pronounced to the point where it actively pissed me off a couple of times. Dude, I understand that these have to be humorous. I understand that there's humor in these shows and in these movies. Nothing wrong with humor. But there has to be, you have to recognize when it fits and when it doesn't. And there's just too many points where I felt like all this quipping really undercuts what's going on. And I think it took a few more episodes for the show to really catch on than some of the other Marvel stuff. Like something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier or WandaVision or Loki. I kind of felt like those ones, the first episodes of each of them kind of hit the ground running really fast. This one took like a couple, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it took a couple of episodes to really find its grounding and become something solid. But by the end, I really dug it. So some of the humor doesn't work for me. I wish they could the action scenes got better, but I still think the MCU could do a little bit better with some of their action scenes. Like you said, I feel like they could shoot them a little bit better. It's just things like that. But it's some of the issues I have are things that I have with a lot of what the MCU does across
Yeah.
the entire brand.
Yeah, because I mean, I had talked about that in that third episode because that scene where they're getting away in the car and that chase scene happens and they go to that bridge and they're all stop all the way at the bridge. I actually felt like that beginning of that sequence when they get in the car and the camera is in the back seat with them and you see from their point of view. I actually thought that was such a great sequence and how intense and how visceral it feels. And you see a lot of this, especially because Clint can't hear and him having to like really use his eyes and navigate everything and not being able to talk and hear what Kate is saying. I felt like once she was shooting the arrows, when she kind of like peeled out of the car, when she got out of the window, I actually felt like that's when that scene kind of lost it for me because then they started diving into the humor and it didn't feel as intense as it should have been.
Yeah. I mean, like like going back to that example I use, I guess the big problem is that, and I watched it with a friend and he pointed this out to me, and my friend pointed this out, we were watching, is like, I honestly don't think that you should be able to laugh at the bad guys that easily. You should be somewhat intimidated. They're kind of like jokes here when you see them. Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. And that whole thing where it turns them into a gag. They're still supposed to be somewhat intimidating, and they're still supposed to feel like a threat.
Well, and I think it was funny once we realized that the company, that Trust a Bro moving company they work for, that was the name. So it was like that. Yeah, bro. All the bros that they say, it feels very funny. I'm like, oh, okay, that's funny. But I think the main thing too is because like you're thinking, okay, the Kingpin is involved now. These guys work for the Kingpin. The Kingpin is gonna rely on these guys, like these guys that are goofy, that are gimmicky, and can't get the job done. I don't know. I'm talking to Kate about taking his girlfriend to an Imagine Dragon concert. I'm like, I like a lot of that stuff is funny. Don't get me wrong, but then when you think about the plot, how the story plays out, and that they're working for the Kingpin later on, when you find that out, you just think to yourself like the Kingpin is going to allow these kind of criminals in his organization.
I feel like the Kingpin would fire goons like this. I'm sorry.
Well, fire them by that's how he would
fire, but yeah, fire them.
Or taking their heads off of car doors like he does in season 1 of Daredevil.
Yeah.
For me, that's one of the main issues, and I think it's because that's part of the MCU's brand now. Everybody associates quips and humor like that with the MCU, and if it doesn't have that, it doesn't feel like the MCU. So I think fans are expecting that now, so that's why they feel the need to constantly have quips like that.
Question: are fans expecting this, or is it Disney that thinks that fans expecting this? Because like everybody I talk to, I mean, I could be wrong. This is just anecdotal, but most people I talk to, even people who love all this stuff, think that the humor in a lot of these movies and shows are overplayed.
Yeah, and it's the same thing too. Like once I bring up those points, there's a lot of people who they don't think about it, but then they think to themselves afterwards when you hear that, oh yeah, the humor feels a little forced. They can probably do without it, and I think it's just because it's been going on for so long that they just figure, well, this is how we've done things, so there's no point to change it and not make it less quippy or less jokey.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a huge issue. I'm not gonna say it's still.
No, it's just one of those things like especially with the Trexie Mafias, when you think these guys are working for the Kingpin and they're gonna be talking to the person that they've captured or that they plan to kill about an Imagine Dragon concert with their girlfriend doesn't want to go to, like
a bonding moment almost where it's like they're bonding together. I'm like, it's just a little over. Just a little overplayed, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I think the thing for me, one of the biggest issues that I've had was that the show was kind of everywhere, and it wasn't exactly sure what the focus was going to be. The first 2 episodes we have the Trexie Mafia and Ronin, and then the second episode, the half of it, then we had Yelena. We still had Ronin, but then towards the end it became the Kingpin. So it's just like the show was kind of jumping around a lot and wasn't exactly sure what the focus was going to be.
It kept shifting gears. And that's another thing. I think what really sold me on the show is the last couple of episodes is what really kind of sold me on the show. And I think it did take a while for them to figure out what they were doing or what route they were going. It did feel a little bit jumbled at times where storytelling, where, I mean, it all fits together in terms of the plot, like everything that's going. but it's not as fluid as you would like to be. It doesn't feel like it knows where it's going. Like
Exactly.
it's almost like I could almost picture them in the writer's room, kind of like winging it, and then on the fourth episode, them realize, okay, now we got all this. This is where it's headed, and I could almost see that happening through the show. Like, could see the creators figuring out as they went along how they want what they want the show to be in the end. So in the end, I think it all comes together. But it had probably the rockiest journey of any of the MCU shows. It seemed the one that least knew what it wanted to be. Like, WandaVision came out the gate with being something very distinctive, and it knew what it wanted to do. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I felt like it was steady, very controlled storytelling from the very first episode. And Loki was just a lot of fun. I don't feel like it ever faltered at any points. I thought all of it was exciting. So yeah, it did take a little while. And even when it is rocky in the first few episodes, it's still entertaining. There's still good stuff there. It just didn't have that cohesive storytelling that the three other shows did, and it didn't get it until towards the end. But on the same time, it had a really exciting, spectacular last couple of episodes.
Yeah. Definitely. I think it's just for me that fact, like, especially, I think maybe they could have introduced the Kingpin a little bit earlier. I think saving Yelena for where she appeared at, that was pretty good. And I felt that was done right. But the whole thing with the King, when you think about it, Kingpin and Echo, they only had like 2 scenes together. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to have this long history, and there was a lot that they've been through. And there was a lot of emotions with there. So I just felt like that.
They didn't.
When he's telling like Maya, you and me are family, I just didn't really feel that connection with it because we saw them interact so little.
Yeah, they didn't set it up for the audience. They just want the audience to just take it at their us to take them at their word that they're close and they had this relationship. Yeah. But I think good storytelling would sell that from the very beginning, and I think it does falter in their relationship. If you wanted to sell the conflict between that scene could have been a lot more impactful if they had set that conflict up of them being kind of family and then kind of going against each other and what she really did to her dad and everything. But they could have introduced it like 3 episodes back. I don't think you needed to wait this long.
But I think that was their intention though, because they wanted to save that this was the Kingpin, they wanted to save the Kingpin as like that for that, and that really built up that all that stuff for that finale.
Yeah, I could see that. But I still wish we would have got it earlier. I just think it would have made things a little bit steadier.
Definitely. I definitely feel so too. One thing I really, really hated too was that, this probably is the worst post-credit scene ever. I hated it.
You hated it?
I hated it. Why? We pretty much saw that already. Like in that first episode where he took his kids to see it.
I actually didn't finish that because I was disinterested in that post-credit scene because I didn't want to see another musical sequence. For one, I think that musical sequence was funny when he's taking his kids to go see it and you're seeing what the Avengers has turned into and you're seeing his reaction to it, his heroism and what he did turn into this weird Broadway play. Like, there's a lot of humor in there, but no, I actually walked away. I waited for the post-credit scene, and then I saw what it was, and I was just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go make a sandwich now. I don't really need to like.
I watched it. I don't know why. Maybe I was expecting somebody to be in the audience. Like maybe Yelena was watching it and like, oh, this is garbage or something. But I don't know why. I just stood and watched it, and I'm like, really? This is what they did? Like they couldn't. Because the rumor, I don't know if this is true. I had just seen a report about this, but apparently one of the other post-credit scenes that was supposed to happen was that Barton sends Kingpin a package and inside of the package is Ronan's sword with a letter telling him to stay away from Kate and his family. But because of that whole thing with him getting shot or them playing on that, that's probably why they didn't go through it. I don't know if that's true, but as far as I've read, like reports that was supposed to be the original post-credit scene.
See, I feel like this post-credit scene is utterly pointless, and the only way it's going to work for you is if you think the MCU's brand of humor is like the funniest thing in the world. If you thought that the musical sequence was like one of the most clever things in the show, then the musical will probably think. But I'm not one of those people, so I just didn't care, and I was frankly quite annoyed too, actually. I actually paused when you said the end credit sequence. I almost forgot when you said. It took me a second to rest. I was like, oh yeah, It's that damn musical that I just shut out of my head. That's what you're talking about. Like my mind totally fired a blank at first. So I was trying to figure, I was like, what was he? I was like, oh yeah, I walked away. I didn't care. I was done with it by then.
I don't know why I watched the whole thing. I was expecting something more, and then when it ended, I'm like, wait, so they just did pretty much what they did in that first. Like we've seen this already. There was going to be nothing else to it. I thought maybe I was expecting something more. I don't know why.
So it's basically replaying the scene without the reactions of Cliff that make it interesting.
And I think that's exactly what it is, because I think that's why that worked for me, because you're seeing like it's almost like comical, or like really like people died. We went through, there was a lot of craziness going on, and now they're just making this a fun play on Broadway. Like
yeah, and it plays it as if, I don't know, as if we didn't acknowledge that was ridiculous in the first place. As if the show didn't acknowledge that was ridiculous.
Yeah. And what about, is there anything else that you found that you didn't like about the show? I think that's pretty much like my main points.
No, those are my main points. I just feel like the storytelling didn't really get solid grounding for like a few episodes, and the humor was overplayed, really overplayed. I think a lot of the humor is overplayed in the MCU, but here it felt glaring, a little more than usual to me. It really bothered me. And as much as the action scenes gotten better, I still think they could do a little bit better with their action scenes.
It was just really like that finale is when the action picked up for me. Because that first episode with all the cutting, and oh my god, it was just so jarring and so discombobulated.
You like the LARPers?
I felt like that was funny. I felt, especially when you have somebody, like we said, a super serious character like Hawkeye, because of this whole being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that is what really, like he's more of an agent than a superhero. Probably sees himself as more of that agent than a superhero. So to have him in that scene where he's having to be funny and then having to play around and play along and have like, come on, man, let me kill you. You're a superhero in real life. This is my only chance to be one. I felt like that was like humor like that works for me, because it doesn't feel forced and it feels like a natural progression, especially when you have a character like Hawkeye. I actually felt like that is a little bit refreshing.
Yeah. I did have to say it was kind of funny when Cliff realized who the backup was, and he saw that it was the LARPers. And he's like, oh god, we're all gonna die.
Yeah. And speaking on when you talk about the humor, what really didn't work for me is that scene where they're trying to like direct people and no one's listening to them. And I don't know, what is it that they say? They say we gotta go get our costumes, or we gotta go to work, or something like that. And then they go in their LARPing costumes and come out. And that's just shit like that with everything going on. You have Elena trying to kill Barton. Then you have Kingpin and the tracksuits trying to get after them at the same time. I'm like, that's just one of those things as far as humor-wise that doesn't work for me. It pulls me out of that scene and that intensity that it's trying to establish.
Sometimes I have to wonder when I'm watching some of the stuff, is like, is Marvel bent on undercutting every serious like scene they have? Are they bent on making sure that we just know that this is all not real or it's a joke?
Yeah.
I get it. This is all fantasy, obviously. This is all not real. It's all fictional. But you want to be able to suspend your disbelief while you're watching something that in this world, this is a threat. And stuff like that it's jarring to me, and it takes me out, and it just makes
it's just like, once they had shown that the cops were their background, or were their backup, I was like, I already knew. I'm like, there's going to be a scene where they freaking put on their costumes. I swear to God, this is going to happen. And sure enough, time to go to work. I'm like, oh shit. Great.
Vaguely predictable and kind of goofy, but yeah.
Definitely. I think it's just stuff like that. Overall, I was actually more impressed by the show, because I felt like I actually had no complaints about the beginning of the show. I know that's a common complaint amongst a lot of people who reviewed the show, and a lot of people who were watching it were saying that, the first couple episodes felt slow, but it picked up like 3 and 4. And I think once Yelena got involved, that's what really upped the ante for people.
I don't know if it felt slow so much as a little unfocused.
Yeah, that too. Unfocused, because like we had talked about, like we had the tracksuits, and then we had Echo, and then Yelena, and then Kingpin. So I definitely felt like unfocused. So more slow is what the complaint that people had.
I gotta hand it though. I mean, what really works about a lot of this for me is the casting. Jeremy Renner is already an excellent actor, and he actually got to play this character and give him more shades, more dimension than he ever did. Florence Pugh is amazing in her role. Vera Farmiga is the mom, Eleanor. I thought she's a fantastic actor.
Great actress. Great actress.
Vincent
Tony Dalton is great as that charismatic guy who you think, hey, there might be a sinister side to him, but there's really just a sweet side, and he obviously has more. He's hiding a lot of stuff because obviously he's a swordsman and is this master at his craft. So I definitely hope we get to see him more, and I really liked his portrayal.
Yeah, Vincent D'onofrio. I think what really one of the solid things about it was the casting. I don't think anybody felt wrong, but yeah, I really enjoyed the casting of the show.
So do you feel like with Daredevil back now in the MCU and Vincent D'onofrio in the MCU also, do you feel that these are the same characters from the Defenders verse, or do you feel like they're entirely new iterations?
That's really, really, really hard to say because we don't really know how. I mean, you should mention this too to the audience. You mentioned to me earlier before the podcast. We don't know how much the Marvel stuff is canon, the Marvel television. I mean, obviously not the Disney Plus stuff. Everything.
It's a little dark in here. Let me turn on let me put my blinds on.
Yeah. Like I'm talking mostly about like the pre-MCU stuff.
Losing me for a second, but yeah, that's the confusion. Oh, keep going.
Yeah. I think it's hard to know what of Marvel television is canon anymore because personally, I don't really think Agent of Shield is canon.
Well, yeah, because with that, the reference to that is we find out that the very end of the show that watch that the tracksuits were after belonged to Barton's wife. What's her name?
Cliff Barton's wife is Laura.
Barton.
Linda.
So when she turns it over, you find that it says 19. So it's revealed that she was also in Shield. Agent 19 in the comics is Mockingbird, and there was a character in Agents of Shield that was Mockingbird and was that actual same character. So she's not Laura. That's not her name in the comics. Her name is Bobby Morse in the comics. So that was another thing that was kind of weird for people, where people were speculating. So was she is whatever happened in Agents of Shield when we saw Mockingbird, is that still canon to the MCU?
If I had to say, I would say no.
Yeah, because I know the thing too with Stephen DeKnight, he was the showrunner for Daredevil. He had said that he wasn't sure if any shows in the Defenders verse, Luke Cage, Punisher, Iron Fist, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, the Defenders, if they were canon to the MCU. He just wasn't sure. But the funny thing is that something I noticed, I actually do feel like this is the same version of Kingpin from the Defenders verse because of the cufflinks. I don't know if you spotted that, but he was like, and also too, when Kate threw it, you see a shot of it in slow motion, and those are the same cufflinks that he wears in Daredevil. So the story, the background that he gives in the first season of Daredevil is the cufflinks were his father's, and he's seen often rubbing them and touching them. And he explains to Vanessa, his wife or love interest, that he wears the cufflinks because they were his father's, and that his father was a cruel man, and lo and behold, he killed his father, and that his mom gave them to him, and he wears them as a reminder to not be his father, to not be cruel just for the sake of being cruel, to be purposefully cruel.
He's pretty cruel, but yeah.
But the whole thing is like, the whole thing is, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this for a specific purpose, and I'm not just cruel because that's my character or because I want to be. I'm doing it because it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
That's essentially why he wears them. So I do feel like this is the same version of the Kingpin for that reason.
I think it's a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because I feel like out of that universe, Daredevil is probably the one who most Marvel fans want to see incorporated into the MCU. So it might be loosely canon, kind of like a loose, like, okay, maybe not all of that, but we'll take Daredevil and we'll take Kingpin. So I feel like maybe it's kind of it's loosely canon.
Yeah. But and the weird thing about that is I feel that they did drop the ball, the MCU, on that, because we know that the Defenders verse existed within the MCU. Because obviously they reference things like the Battle of New York, they reference Hulk, they reference Iron Man, they reference a lot of stuff that happened in the MCU. But the movies don't reference anything. Like, I was really hoping that when Iron Man is telling Peter at the end of Homecoming sorry, when Tony is telling Peter at the end of Homecoming, why don't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? But don't be like that guy from Hell's Kitchen. That guy is a weirdo. Like just little things like that they could have referenced that let us know that those shows take place in the MCU and exist within them. Like I just felt like that was just an easy transition. And
I honestly don't think they do at this point.
Yeah.
Overall,
I feel like they just pick and choose. Like maybe there'll be certain things, or they're just going in with the intention of, oh well, we don't know. We're just bringing, these are the same actors reprising the roles, but a lot of the stuff that they've been through and that history, we're not exactly focusing on, and I don't think they're going to reference it.
That's what I mean by loosely canon, where I'm like, okay, we're kind of going to take them, and you get the idea, but I don't think they want to like commit to it. But they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to take the best part thing, but without committing to what that was. And I have to admit, it's from a storytelling point of view, everybody who writes the movies and the shows and is involved in this, that's got to be very difficult to keep track of, to make sure that you're not contradicting anything. And I think axing a lot of these shows is probably simpler for storytelling reasons. So they don't have to think, okay, does this work? Can we do this? We have to think about what happens with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly.
Like, I imagine it becomes very complicated after a while to try to do that. And as it is, even axing those shows, this is already a massive universe with so many movies and TV shows at this point, where I could feel like Marvel would want to like, let's not bring that in. Let's just take the most popular thing, Daredevil, bring it in, and let's probably pretend the rest never happened.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way.
I think they're doing.
I definitely feel the same way.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I give this show an 8 out of 10. Definitely got better as it went along, and definitely expect a lot of great things from Kate Bishop. Obviously, she's going to be the new Hawkeye, and can't wait to see more of Yelena. Hopefully, we get to see more of Kingpin return. I mean, he's got it. There's just no way that they were going to bring him back only for this one-time appearance. There's just, especially with Spider-Man and Daredevil back also. There is just no way. Echo is going to be awesome. I'm really stoked for her show. I know Eric is a big fan of Echo, and he had said that that's probably one of his more anticipated shows for next year.
Yep, that's going to be good. I mean, she's a great character. We barely even touched on her in here, but I think she did really well. I don't think it's a coincidence that Daredevil appears and the Kingpin appear right around the same time, like when Spider-Man No Way Home drops and the Hawkeye finale comes out.
Exactly.
It's not a coincidence that both of them reappeared in this universe right around the same time. I think it's kind of, that's Marvel letting you know that, hey, we're bringing these guys in and this is going to be a part of it from here on out.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. What would you rate the show out of a 10?
I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Solid 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 out of 5, 8. I feel like that's a good range for it to be, honestly. Deserving of where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And what about Clint and Jeremy Renner's future? Do you feel like he's going to be around for a little while longer, or when do you think he's going to fizzle out and
Clint
drop out?
Clint Barton really didn't stand out before. I think I kept calling him Cliff earlier. Clint Barton really didn't stand out before. I hope that he sticks around a little bit more, only because I think it would be somewhat of a cheat to finally like get a grip on that character, get like a solid understanding and kind of like a better understanding of who he is as a person, and then just to drop him out of it like that. And he didn't really get the trilogies that like Captain America and Iron Man got and all of them. So I kind of hope that he sticks around a little longer.
Definitely.
Personally.
I know that this show was obviously their way of trying to pass the torch and trying to hand off the role to a successor. So I feel like that was also heavily indicated. And you see a lot of that too. It just hit with the whole family perspective and him wanting to spend all that time with the farm and get away from superheroism and being an agent. Well, I mean, he's not an agent anymore, but I feel like it's very sad because Jeremy Renner is such a great actor, and this is his first time getting a starring role in the MCU. But I mean, probably within the next 5 years, he's probably, especially at his age, he's 50 now. So
I still think that they have to have a little bit more, because why would they introduce that little twist with his wife? Yeah, I feel like you don't introduce those kinds of twists if you're just trying to get rid of or push them back and off to the sidelines.
Well, who knows? In 10, 15 years, maybe he can be like Old Man Logan and be a blind Hawkeye.
I don't see why we can't have superheroes in their 50s. Shit.
Well, I mean, Tobey Maguire is almost 50, so why that definitely.
That's true, but doesn't like Jeremy Renner look like better for his age? I don't know.
I mean, I think they look around the same age. I think he's probably in a little bit better shape than Toby.
I guess
Toby
that's
looked a
why
little
he
thin,
looks.
but
I don't know. Jeremy Renner still looks battle ready to me. He doesn't.
yeah,
Like, he looks his age. He looks like a 50-year-old man, but he doesn't look like a tired 50-year-old. I could buy him.
no, he definitely doesn't.
No,
He's looking
Tobey
like he's in
Maguire.
great shape, and
Yeah, Tobey Maguire. I mean, I love seeing him in No Way Home, but it seemed kind of shaky to me to like, yeah, you can't really bring that Spider-Man back like that. That's done. Like, look, it's just
which is
that.
kind of weird because Andrew Garfield looked exactly the same from 2014 in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Because
They didn't. They're only
Andrew
like
Garfield,
8 years apart, and I think they looked about like 15 years, to be honest.
Andrew Garfield has looked the same for
Like,
the past decade or
because
so.
I was more surprised about that because I hadn't seen his recent roles in a while, or I hadn't seen him in like 3-4 years. So when he took off his mask, I was like, oh damn, what the hell? He looks exactly the same from 2014, and that was 7-8 years ago.
I mean, it also could do with the fact that Andrew Garfield still makes movies, and Tobey Maguire hadn't made anything since 2014. So,
What, The Great Gatsby, I think, or
yeah, that was the last thing that he made was in 2014, The Great Gatsby. But like, Andrew Garfield was like in 3 movies this year,
yeah.
and one of them, I mean, he might even get like a Best Actor nomination for I think it was Tick Tick Boom or something like that. But he probably stays a little more camera ready because he's still an actor. Tobey Maguire,
Still a working actor.
a still working actor. I mean, Tobey Maguire is an actor, but you don't really see him very much anymore.
Yeah, but
so before we go, this is another bit of news. I don't know if you remember. Did you see the new trailer for the Batman?
I was actually gonna ask you about if we should talk about that
Yes.
in the very beginning. But I was gonna mention it in the very beginning. I thought, okay, we'll focus this one on Hawkeye. But for those of you who haven't seen, there's been a new trailer released for the Batman called The Bat and the Cat, where we get a little bit more insight and a little bit more development on the type of relationship that Batman and Catwoman are gonna have. So, like, we'll talk a little about that. We'll spend the next like 5-10 minutes. What did you think overall of this trailer? Is this giving you a lot of excitement? Is it killing that excitement?
No,
Overall, what do you think?
It's giving me more excitement. For one, it looks like they're gonna really nail the Batman Catwoman relationship.
Yes.
In a way that Christopher Nolan could never figure out with The Dark Knight Rises. I just didn't buy it, to be quite honest. I didn't buy their dalliance or their semi-romance or whatever it was. I didn't buy it. Just with this trailer alone, I already get the feeling of their relationship as it is in the comic books, where they work together. He's in her apartment. They kind of, like where Alfred says, "Is a new friend of yours?" And he's like he's
I don't know.
I don't know, like that uncertainty of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they're always walking a very fine line with each other, and she's not a hero, but she's not really a villain either. She's not a bad person. She's somewhere in between, and they both kind of walk a fine line. And she steps over it more than he does, obviously, which is why their relationship is so rocky. But it really looks like they're going to be selling the tension between Catwoman and Batman. It looks very accurate to how their relationship is supposed to be in the comic books. And it's a little geek thing. I kind of love that moment where he's like, "You have a lot of cats." He's like, "I have a thing for strays." I was like, that's a total Selena Kyle moment, and that's something I could Batman saying. But I'm stoked for it. We haven't had a Batman movie in a decade. I know that it doesn't seem like that, but the
Batman versus Superman.
We haven't had a Batman movie, a pure Batman movie in a decade. So it's been, I didn't realize it's 2012 is the
Dark Knight Rises,
Dark Knight Rises. It'll have been a decade since we've gotten a solo Batman film. And when you say that, you're like, what are you talking about? But it's only because we've had a Joker movie. We've had a Birds of Prey movie. We've had 2 Suicide Squad movies. Yeah. We've had the Justice League. We've had
Batman versus Superman.
It feels like Batman and his world never left the screen. But in reality, we haven't had a Batman movie in a while. So
yeah,
it's nice to getting back to Batman. Because, it's my favorite character. I love seeing him mix it up with the Justice League. Obviously, he's gonna fight Superman, and of course, I think the Joker is worthy of his own movie, as is Harley Quinn.
Definitely.
really want to see Batman back in the spotlight as a main thing. It's been a
Mm.
long time, and I'm totally excited for it.
Yeah. And I think I had already known that Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, she plays Catwoman. I already knew that they were going to have pretty good chemistry, but oh my God, this trailer alone, you just see it magnifying all that chemistry and all that sexual tension and all that intimacy that's being thrown at you. It feels so Batman and Catwoman from the comics. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is awesome. And because getting back to that with the whole thing, I think it's not exactly fair to hate on The Dark Knight Rises for their portrayal of Catwoman, because that was a Catwoman who was trying to rectify her past and trying to remedy it and start over. So I think it already didn't exactly start off on the best leg. But also, just in general, where I think it really falters is that you don't feel that chemistry between Christian Bale and Anne Hathaway. It just feels very, very muddled, or very. You see those instances, but it feels a little forced. Their romance and her kissing him.
I don't buy it. I guess that's the biggest problem with that version of those characters, is I just did not buy it. And I mean, like Selena Kyle, like in Batman Returns with Michelle Pfeiffer, that actually takes great liberties with that character and does things to like are not comic book accurate at all. And Christopher Nolan actually creates a more comic book accurate Selena Kyle Catwoman.
But I feel like probably Burton's version is probably paying more homage to the comics than Christopher Nolan did.
But the chemistry that Michael Keaton's Batman had and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman had, even though it wasn't the most comic book accurate, it felt right. It felt like they have the type of chemistry that Batman and Catwoman are supposed to have. It had that the sexual tension was there. The feeling of that they're both crossed the line, but one crosses it more. The idea that they really want to be together very bad, and it's kind of heartbreaking at the end where she's like, I couldn't live with myself, so let's not pretend it's a happy ending. And the kind of tragedy of that they know that they are so right for each other, but because of who they are and because of what they represent, they can't really have each other. It resonated. It was sad. It was tension. I was like, for all that Tim Burton like really took liberties, he just got the relationship between Batman and Catwoman better so much more than Christopher Nolan, who did a more comic book accurate one, and it still did not capture what their relationship is like to me. And that end, that's why I love what Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer did. And it's nice to see something a little bit more in that line. On top of it, it seems like it's going to combine the best things of both the tension and the kind of chemistry and the kind of romance and the kind of like
all the moral, ethical implications that come with it.
Yeah, all the moral, ethical implications that we got in Tim Burton's Batman, combined with the more comic book accurate elements that we get in the Christopher Nolan version.
Because one thing that I'm theorizing about this film is that Catwoman will actually be the catalyst for him to not be so brutal, or to realize that, and he actually says this in the trailer, like justice is the way, or he says something about that. So I feel, because there's this one of the last trailers that they had was Batman like beating the hell out of Riddler, and you see Catwoman behind him like terrified. So I feel like that's going to be the point where he realizes what it means to be a hero and who he truly has to be, what the Batman can stand for. Batman can also be something that's terrifying to criminals and someone for them to fear, but at the same time, someone who does the right thing, does the good thing, protects citizens, and keeps that in his heart and tries to become the best hero that he can. More channeling that inner hero than that vigilante who wants to eradicate crime and make people scared of him. So I feel like even though she has a lot of moral and ethical issues for herself going, but she's probably going to be the catalyst for him to come back and step back and find out what it truly means to be a hero, or be like that voice of reason. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. You're a hero.
Like, kind of maybe rediscover a little bit of his humanity. Help him to like remember, like, hey, like, take this back, because from what I understand, this version of Batman is obsessed. He doesn't really appear very much. He's always underground, and she's probably what's going to bring. Even though she crosses more lines than him, she'll probably bring out a little bit more humanity in him. At the time. And
kind of discover what the Batman can stand for, and hey, I can be a hero. I don't just have to be this force for vengeance and brutality. I can be something better.
You getting
I
those?
feel like
You getting those Court of Owls vibes from this?
that's what a lot of people have said actually too.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's. I mean, you get. And I hope we can't piece this together too much, but it's obvious that the Riddler in this is trying to point something out about Bruce Wayne's family history that he seems completely ignorant of. In that moment where he's like, "You're part of this," he's like, "How?" And he's like, "Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were."
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne. So,
and that further hints at what he tells to Alfred when he says to him, Alfred, you lied to me." So it feels like, and that's already been portrayed in some of the trailer where we see that there's gonna be probably some kind of corruption going on with the Wayne family, or something that Thomas Wayne was involved with, or that goes back generations. So there could be that element of it. But I think that was also how the Waynes were portrayed in Joker too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where Thomas Wayne wasn't that generous philanthropist. He was a bit of an a-hole and a real D-bag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, totally in that one.
That's really uncanny of a lot of his portrayals in comics are up until, and even in the media up until this point.
I think the Court of Owls storyline has kind of portrayed how the Waynes are viewed. Because it seems like even Christopher Nolan's version of it had them as almost like, they had almost Thomas Wayne as a damn saint in that movie. It's almost ridiculous how perfect he is and how righteous he is and how right he is. But it seems like they're going with some of the more modern interpretation that maybe the Waynes were good people, but that doesn't mean they didn't swim in corruption. We saw it in Long Halloween too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think you see instances like obviously with him helping out the Falcones and him and Bruce kind of being torn about that. So I do feel like that's something that isn't exactly new, but for them to go this route, I think it's definitely a new portrayal in pop culture, at least.
Yeah.
And I'm really digging the vibe that I'm getting from the Riddler. He feels like a combination of the Zodiac Killer and Jigsaw.
And you know what? The Riddler has already got
Jigsaw from Saw. Sorry.
Yeah. I know. I know.
I'm just making sure that everybody knows. Like, make sure Jigsaw from the Saw movies.
Yeah. Over the years, I mean, he's gotten a lot of comparisons to the Zodiac Killer and to Jigsaw. I don't know if you remember this. They had this a long time ago. It was on the History Channel. It was when The Dark Knight came out. This is like an old documentary from 2008. It was about the psychology of Batman's villains. And I remember they were talking about the Riddler and his narcissism and his taunting and the way that he commits these crimes and like gives clues and riddles that almost like seem where he's exercising his intellectual superiority by flaunting in your face. It makes sense that they're going that route because he's already been has been compared to people like the Zodiac Killer and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, and I remember even like when he's gotten his comparisons to Jigsaw from Saw way back in like 2011. I remember when Arkham City came out and they had a trailer, like a Riddler trailer, and him putting people in traps and Batman having to save them before they die. A lot of people were complaining, hey, this feels like they're ripping off Saw, they're ripping off Jigsaw. But a lot of people are like, I mean, he's had a long history. If you've seen, read like darker interpretations of Batman comics from the Riddler, a lot of that is very reminiscent of how the Jigsaw Killer operated, and him putting people in death traps. Like, it's not something that was anything new, but I think because of pop culture, it was the first time they had seen that kind of portrayal of the Riddler. People were like obviously making those comparisons and like, they ripped off. Saw came out 6-7 years ago, so they're ripping off Saw, obviously.
So I think what they're going to do is erase the public's perception of the Riddler as Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. And Paul Dano is such a great actor. I definitely can't wait to see what he does with that character and the kind of vibe. And to get back to that whole narcissism and how much of an ego this character has, we had that in that line when he says, "You're not as smart as I thought you were, Bruce Wayne." I think that really catapults all his ego and really captures his narcissism all in one sentence.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be reminiscent of that.
And it's cool because I know we've done the Riddler, but we haven't really done that villain in a long time, and it hasn't been done fully right, as menacing as it could be in the comic books. So I think that's a good choice. The Joker's played out. I love the Joker, and they're going to have to do the Joker at some point in this because you that's unavoidable. I'm sorry, that's unavoidable. It's too crucial to Batman. But I like that for now. Okay, let's concentrate on Selena Kyle. Let's concentrate on the Riddler. Let's introduce the Penguin. Yeah, and I like
whatever the hell is going on with the secrets of the Wayne family and what
Yeah.
exactly they were involved in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Court of Owls. There's going to be a lot of stuff drawn from the
Yeah.
Court of Owls storyline,
What
which
do
I
you-
know
what
is
do
going to
you-
be controversial because some people despise like the New 52.
Well, I mean, from what I understand and from what I'm talking to people, they do like the Court of Owls. The New 52 did have a lot of controversial things going for it, but the Court of Owls, I feel like, was one of the brighter spots of the stories that they created out of there. And Scott Snyder helped to write that story, and he's a great. He created the Batman Who Laughs. So
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
what do you think about the action? How does it look so far? Are you digging the vibes that you get from it?
I am so far. It's hard to say because they only show small flashes of it. I don't know what the action style is. What about you? You're the one who has more.
From my understanding, and this is something that was confusing to me, was that Pattinson trained in BJJ in preparation for this role. So I was a little bit surprised at that, if that was the only kind of combat training or stunt training that he had got. As far as the reports I read, that's what he had done. And obviously, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's all grappling, it's all groundwork. And when you're Batman having to fight 10 guys surrounding you, obviously you're not going to be rolling around putting guys in arm bars or things like that. So I felt that was a little bit weird. But from the vibes I'm getting from the trailers, it seems like his fighting style is not going to be as distinguished. He's not going to be exactly of the same kind of quality of fighter. It's going to be a little bit more brutality. It's just going to be
brutal. I mean, he looks brutal. He looks like you don't want to get hit by him. That's for sure.
I even think he's going to be very improvisational, very resourceful. I think you had that scene in this trailer where he's using the rifles to as a melee weapon to beat his opponents. I feel like this one, he's not going to have a distinguished reserve fighting style. He's going to be competent to a level, but it's just more going to be about unleashing that anger and that brutality, as opposed to being like a seasoned crime fighter who is very understanding and very calm and in control of the situation. I think it's just going to be about just pummeling his opponents into the ground, essentially.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not the most refined, but it looks frightening. I'll say that if I were like out there and I were a criminal and I saw that's what was coming, I'd be like, F this, I'm not gonna. I'm done. I'm sorry. Bye. I'm going home.
Yeah. So good stuff to come with that. I really can't wait for it.
What about the voice? I like the voice so far.
I'm digging it so far. I think Christian Bale, honestly, the voice that he used in Batman Begins as Batman was great. I'm like, okay, this is great. I really like it. And then it wasn't until people started making fun of him in The Dark Knight when I started listening to it. I started listening to it more instinctively, and I started actually really paying attention. And I'm like, why is he doing that? Why, Alfred, what do you why do you want to kill me? What? I felt like it was easily imitatable.
It's
especially when you go from somebody like Kevin Conroy, who is what we grew up with. When you compare his voice to Christian Bale, you're just like, wow, it's eons better than what Christian Bale was doing.
Yeah, because Kevin Conroy changes his voice, but it doesn't sound laughable. There's just like, and it sounds worse like in The Dark Knight. And it's weird because I always have so many nitpicks about those movies, despite the fact that I love them. I think they're brilliant. I think they're amazing films. You have to like, as much as I nitpick at the Christopher Nolan stuff, you have to understand, in spite of all that, I think they're phenomenal, dude.
They're great. Very great.
Yeah. Cream of the crop. But there's just things about it. There's just things that kind of tick with me. And one of them is Batman's voice. And it's just
I don't understand. If you look at scenes where the camera's on Batman when he's not talking, he just has his mouth open. He's just like,
yeah.
Like, why does he do that?
Yeah, and
it makes me laugh. I'm like, I don't know.
It sounds goofier. It sounds even goofier when he's out of breath in that one scene, where he's
not the one where he's talking to Selena and she's
no. This isn't The Dark Knight. You either die, or you live. I'm gonna have to see yourself become the villain. And he does it after he's out of breath because he just rescued Harvey Dent's. Commissioner.
I'm picturing it in my head. It's hilarious.
And I was like, I get he's out of breath, but that extra raspy voice when he's trying to catch his breath is slightly, it makes it even more comical. There's just things about it you're like,
I feel like it's just he's trying too hard. Like, I don't know why they went off with what, because Batman Begins, I thought he had a great Batman voice. I thought it was great. I thought they didn't need to change it. And then when they did that, I liked it in the beginning, but then when everybody was making fun of it and I listened to it better and with more of an understanding, I'm like, oh my God, that is awful. Why? It just seems like he's trying too hard.
It seems like they took what worked in Batman Begins with his voice and then like exaggerated it or like pumped it up to 11. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
So getting back to Pattinson, I feel like he's doing something more natural, but it's not over the top and it's not something where he's trying too hard. It sounds like something within his range that he's able to do. And I know it's actually funny. I don't know if you knew who was the inspiration for his Batman voice. Do you know?
Was it Kurt Cobain?
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe?
William Dafoe.
That makes sense.
He said in an interview, I think he worked on him with, was it Lighthouse, the film that
Lighthouse.
They worked on? Yeah, he had said that William Dafoe was the inspiration for his voice. I don't know if he exactly had a conversation with him about what he should do, but I know he had said that William Dafoe was the source.
I could see that because if you watch The Lighthouse, they're really the only two actors in it. It's like Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. It's like each of their goal is to act the other one off the screen. Like that seems like what they're going for. Like it's pretty.
Awesome.
It's like they're trying to.
I need to see that then.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to act each other off the screen, but I could totally see that as being the inspiration. I know they said, it's so weird. They said Kurt Cobain was the inspiration when we were writing it.
I guess you can kind of see it with the hair and the eye makeup like that. You can kind of see like that grungy kind of depressed look in this character.
They keep using that Nirvana song.
Exactly. That's what it really set off to me too. I was like, well, that makes sense. I mean, maybe Matt Reeves is a big Nirvana fan, or it seems like he's a big Nirvana fan. I mean, using Kurt Cobain as an inspiration for Batman, for this version of Bruce Wayne, and then having a Nirvana song in the first trailer that they had. I was like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. But what about you? What do you think of his Batman voice so far?
I dig it. I dig it because it seems like he does a touch of what Christian Bale does without taking it that over the top.
Yeah. Like there's that hint of that raspiness, but very slightly.
Very slightly, just enough to change it that it sounds different from his normal voice. And of course, that line, which we've already seen a bunch of times, is like, "I'm vengeance." That with the wrong actor, that could come across as laughable or goofy. But the way that Robert Pattinson delivers it, he's like, "I'm vengeance." I was like, oh, I totally buy it. I think he nailed it. For a live action Batman, it's probably going to be the one that nails it the most since Michael Keaton, Michael Keaton had a great Batman voice. Never exaggerated it either, but like I really like his Batman voice. I like where they're taking this. I'm really excited for this, especially as a Batman fan, to see what this new Batman universe is going to be like. And
also too, with shout out to him because he looks like he's in pretty good shape as Batman.
Oh yeah, and the trailer, people were saying, oh, he doesn't want to work out and everything. When I saw the trailer, I was like, he looks pretty buff to me. He looks in pretty good.
He has a little bit of fat on him. I mean, he's more of a leaner. The frame that he has, he's a little bit more of a leaner Batman. So you're not going to see Robert Pattinson at like 230, 220 pounds, whatever Batman's weight is in the comics. He looks like he's about 190, maybe 200 at the most. So more of a leaner, more agile Batman, which is like, this works for that character.
I'm okay with that. I think that works. I mean, we already saw Ben Affleck with his bulkiness. So I'm digging it. I like where it's going. And it seems that it's probably going to be the one that he's most to the comic books. And the fact that this storyline involves the Riddler and him trying to figure something out, it really shows that they're playing up the detective angle more than any previous live action iteration. And they all do it to some degree. I'm not going to say like it's there. You see it in Christian Bale's version. You even see it in Michael Keaton's version, but it's not emphasized to the extent the way that is in the comic books, the detective angle. It's there, but it could be a little bit more. It seems like with this version, they're really going to be pushing the idea that he is the world's greatest detective. And I kind of like
I'm so ready for it because we haven't seen that kind of portrayal in pop culture.
Live action. In
live action film, we haven't.
Yeah, in live action. I mean, we've seen it done in various
my bad. Live action film, we haven't seen it done.
Animation, we've seen it.
Yeah.
but
But
it seems just like they're really trying to like take it straight out of the comic book.
and even the cinematography looks great. Matt Reeves is known for great cinematography in his movies, and just the city of Gotham looks great. It doesn't look like Chicago like it does in Nolan's films.
It looks like
The scope of the city looks great.
it looks like Gotham City. It looks like its own city. It looks like some place that I've never been, or a place that doesn't exist but could exist.
Mm.
So
So a lot of great stuff to come. I think it's tied with me on this in Multiverse of Madness. I think Multiverse of Madness, the only reason is just because of all of it has going for it, and Sam Raimi coming back. But just because I'm a huge Batman fan, the Batman is probably my most anticipated comic book film of 2022. Cool.
And as of right now, I've been keeping track of it. It is, if the predictions stay correct, that is going to be the biggest movie of 2022.
It should be.
It should be.
So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Make sure you guys check out that recent trailer, The Bat and the Cat. It looks freaking awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. That's all the time we have for today. I know it went a little bit longer. I kind of only wanted to briefly talk about the Batman, but there's so much good stuff going on with it. This episode will obviously focus more on Hawkeye. Make sure you guys check out that too. And this is all the time we have for today. This is Series of Mutants. Make sure you check out all the other podcasts on Higher Passion Entertainment. We got one for relationships, one for music, one for sports, one for anime. Whatever it is your nerd needs, we got it. So thank you guys so much, and follow us on IG at Higher Passion Entertainment. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.